And this is Scott Farms 8R250. I'm guessing this is replacing the 8245Rs they had. Even though they had 3 or 4 8245Rs, this is the only 8250R I've seen. I think they replaced the rest of them with 8280Rs. These are pretty decent looking peanuts from what I've seen, which looks can be deceiving on peanuts. They can look like there's a lot of peanuts out there and they end up being a lot of pops. And when they're picked, they just blow out the back of the combine. But these look really good. They're really white when they got them dug up. And you can see how those tines and those rollers force them peanuts through there and invert them. That's why it's called an inverter. And a lot of the old folks call them shakers, and a lot of other folks do. It ain't just the older guys. It's because that's what my uncles called them, and that's what my granddad called them. And that's what they do. They shake the dirt off of them. So, and KMC refers to it in their literature as a digger shaker inverter. And I would say KMC is probably the market leader on peanut inverters. They pretty much perfected the things back in the early 80s. And I'd probably say 90% that are out there are KMCs. There are a few Amadas which I've heard the Amatis is a pretty darn good inverter too, but I only know of one person that has one, and I haven't seen it in operation in the last few years. I've only caught it on video one time, and that was only for about 15 minutes, and it shut down. Back in the early 80s, the guy that, man that owned, not owned, but farmed our property and farmed a lot of the property. Well, this actually used to be his home farm. He was running, or plowing up peanuts, they were running either 4 or 5, I think. Either 3 or 4 or 5 two-row models. And that's pretty much what everybody was running. You've seen a few people running 4-row inverters, but the 4-row inverters did not work that great. Due to the wheel tracks, everybody was planting with 6-row equipment back then, but the biggest inverter you could get was a 4-row. So on one pass you'd be in the wheel tracks, and the tractor would sit up real good because that was your planter tracks, tractor tracks when it was planted. But the inverter, actually, the original ones that I've seen, you plowed up the 2 rows in between the tires and 2 rows on the right side, and when you came back, it was the same deal. So on one trip down, you were in hard soil, compacted soil from the planter tractor, and on your pass back you weren't. So your tractor was sinking in more, which changed the depth on your cutter blades, the undercutter blades. And they said you were always fighting, either had too much taproot when you were digging it, or you had too little taproot. You couldn't have a happy medium. Because on one pass you might have it perfect, and the next pass it would be too deep. And if you shallowed it up, you'd be dang near almost too shallow on one pass and perfect on the other. So they never really caught on. Not a lot of people used them. Now, if you were planting with 4-row equipment, KMC did make a 4-row inverter that just did it plowed up the rows that the planter planted, and those seem to work fairly well. You used to see a lot of those over in Alabama, but the 2 rows were what was popular around this area anyway. It wasn't nothing unusual to see. Well, I know when Mr. Gardner, the man that used to own this, they had 2-row inverters on, I know, one 40-20, a 40-40, 44-40, and I believe a 44-30. And only one of those had a cab. Everything else was either 4-post or open station. And I mean to tell you, with a 2-row inverter, even with 4 or 5 of them going, it takes a long time to plow up a lot of acres. Now, I know they wasn't running as many acres back then, but still. Thanks for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and check out some other videos on YouTube under South Georgia Farming. Thanks for watching.